take us to 2 days before you'd applied for the pension, and then all of a sudden you were appointed as the Black Ferns coach. The conversation with Trish, are you saying, hey,
I'm going in again.
You know how I went for the pension 2 days ago? Actually, I'm now head coach of the Women's World Cup team.
She was totally supportive. I actually got home after that first week and I was buggered. Like, I hadn't coached for a while. I took every session. Unfortunately, people had resigned when that mental health report came out, and I was sort of stuck in the middle with Wes Clark, Whitney Hanson, who'd been a one-day-a-week intern, Glenn Moore, who'd been the head coach. It was really hard on Glenn. He's a good mate. It was really difficult on him. So I got home after that first week. I could hardly speak. I had laryngitis. You know, I'd taken all these sessions. I'd been pushing the girls, and I'd made a statement to them: we're going to win. We're going to win the World Cup at Eden Park in front of 40,000. But we're not going to win it today. We've got a lot of work to do. And so they bought into the game we wanted to play and the skills that they needed to play that game. So we started early. But I got home that first week. I said to Trish, I was starting to feel, I don't reckon I can do this. Like, it was just so hard. And she put her arm around my neck and gave me a hug and said, you got to do it. Like, it's too late for anyone else. You've got to do it. So, yeah. So I thought, right, I've got to steel up here. And managed to get Mike Cron, my old mate Mike Cron, on board.
Scrum doctor.
Who's, more than that, way more than a scrum doctor, Mike Cron. Just a brilliant coach. I think best in the world. Won 2 World Cups with him, with the men, and now one with the women. And he was the ideal mentor for Whitney. So Whitney was made head forward coach, and Chrono was her mentor, but you got the best coach in the world mentoring a woman with huge potential, you know, so that balanced out well. Had Wes Clark, who I'd been working with for quite a few years before that anyway, as a mentor. He was the defence coach, and I fought hard to get Alan Bunting in. I'd heard a lot about Alan Bunting as in terms of culture and leadership that he creates in the Sevens. He had huge success, loved by the girls, Olympic gold, multiple World Cups. So I was working with New Zealand Rugby to see if I could get him in to run the culture and leadership side, because it was taking its toll on me. I was under the pump. I was working with the leaders on a concept, and I needed someone to run it. So luckily, Bunce was able to come in.
Can I just say, a long way from second year university at University of Waikato, Alan Bunting, to who he is now.
Yeah.
Like, that progression as a man is incredible. Not that I claim to know him very well, but I just remember the dreadlock guy who was kind of on the fringe of the Seven Circuit. To see who he is and what he's doing now is an incredible progression.
Yeah, and he tells that story too, because he had some tough years, like we've all had, you know, when we're younger, doing things we shouldn't do. And that's what makes him a great human in that environment. So he and I worked really well together. You know, initially we were going to base everything on a waka, and we designed these ideas. We're having a chat one day with a leadership group and decided we're not actually going anywhere, so we don't need a waka. And we decided let's use our whare. So let's base everything on our whare. And what does that mean? So who are we? What's our identity? Let's everyone tell us about their whare. And so we started a process, Te Whare Tapawha, where everyone had to present to the team at some point about where they'd come from, who they were, what their upbringing was like, what their purpose is, what their strengths are, what do they need to work on, you know, all that sort of stuff, who their mentors are.
What was your, just pause it, what was your te ao Māori knowledge before your rugby journey?
My te reo Māori knowledge comes from Pataru, that's about it. Eho, we called each other Eho. Yeah. You know, I know a lot of words, tauranga puku and all that, because you use them in everyday language in Pataru. I'm going to study it, I think, at some point. It's the same vowel sounds as Italian, and I speak Italian, so hopefully I'll be able to pick it up.
But even the concepts of Māori and Māoridom, like, they seem to be really strong through your coaching now? Is that something that you've picked up along the way?
Yeah, I think, well, obviously coming from where I came from, but also the Chiefs experience, the looking at the history, knowing intimately about the settlement by Tainui and having followed where they went. We followed their trail. We united the region. So yeah, I have had some experience in it, but I wouldn't say I'm anywhere near an expert in it, and I don't speak it very well. When I go to my PPR, I use the odd word, but I can't. I've never studied to do a proper PPR. But this experiment we tried with the Te Whare Tapawhā created huge social capital in the team and massive vulnerability, which is always important, and it really united the group. And I'm forever thankful for Bunce coming on board because he was able to drive that. And he and I presented first, along with, I think, Ruby, Ruahei and Kendra Coxedge and Wes Clark. We were the first ones to present. And then, we fitted girls in all right through the season. There were some traumatic ones, there were some funny ones. But through it all, there was a lot of support, a lot of tears, but a real understanding of who we were and everyone knowing each other. And I think it was a massive part of us doing what we did at that World Cup.
This story is so epic. The whole coaching journey, which we've spoken about, sort of culminated in this, using all of the experience you've gathered along the way. It's like 159 days to turn this thing around and you end up winning it. The story's been well documented. But when you're going in there and you're meeting the team and you've got fresh eyes on them, like, how are you establishing leaders, like, straight away? Are you throwing out the knowledge that's been passed on? Are you just going in with a fresh approach?
Well, having people like Wes and Whitney as my co-coaches, I call them, not assistants, they knew the players. I didn't know the players. An example of how we operated, so the end of that first week, we had a game planned against the Lincoln Academy boys. I wanted to play boys and men all the way through to really challenge ourselves. And we were getting a bit of a hiding, but we've been practicing all week a new game plan, which was all out attack. And it was about learning from each play so that we could attack the right space next time. And offloads, supporting an offload is different to supporting a ruck. And it takes a long time to teach cue recognition beyond the ball. Is the offload going to be on here? No. Is she going to pop off the ground? Maybe. Change lines for that. No, she's not. Now I've got to clean. And that's quite a sophisticated thing to do, and you can't teach it quickly, but you've got to start somewhere. So anyway, the fourth quarter of our match against Lincoln, I went out to listen to what the girls were saying, and this woman called Ruahei Demont was put on to play in the last quarter. And she spoke eloquently to the team about what the F are you doing, girls? We spent all week practicing the stuff that Smithy wants us to use, and you're using none of them. Where's your courage? And that fourth quarter was good. It was brilliant. I was able to cut some clips from it and say, now we're cooking with gas if we can play like this. So it gave us some light. But I went back to the bench and asked the other two, so who was that girl who was speaking? They said, it's Ruahei Demont. Is she a Black Fern? Yep, she played for the Black Ferns. I don't know if she'd been a first choice player or anything. This is what they said. And I said, well, she's going to be our captain for a start. That's my first thing. She's going to be our captain. Yeah. And I go,
what? Wayne, whoa.
But, sometimes you just get that feeling for it. And then it soon became obvious that some of the older leaders weren't going to make it, which was hard. It's hard for them, hard for me, telling them that. But it was the reality. We've got so many young women coming through the game and so many exceptional women. we had about 55, I reckon, that could have played at the World Cup. And so it made it difficult. And we had to be really sharp with who we wanted. I still remember Ruby ringing me one day and saying, you want to see this 18-year-old girl in Auckland, plays midfield. I said, what's her name? Sylvia Brunt. You've got to have a look at her, Smithy, like, she's phenomenal. So just things like that, started learning about different women around the country, giving them opportunity. We gave everyone opportunity. During the Pac 4, we played the whole squad. They all got a chance. Then we had a trial. Then we had a Riley test over in Aussie again. We gave everyone a chance. And I'd always said to them, the coaches aren't going to pick the team, you pick the team with your performance. And it'll become obvious through the year who can do it and who we're going to take to the World Cup. So that's the way we operated. And yeah, we ended up with a phenomenal group of women. As I said before, they give to community, they're excited. You'd hop on a bus coming home from training and someone would get up and say, oh, we were shit today, girls, doing that. 7:30 up in the team room, we're on Smithy's tactical mat, coaches will come, but we hardly had to say anything. You want them teaching each other. As a leader, you need to keep thinking, is what I'm doing helping these people flourish? Are they responsible for their own learning? And that's the way that we were coaching. And the girls just adapted to it. They were awesome. And so they'd fix things up upstairs. Next day they'd be a bit more prepared again. And we continued that on for the whole campaign, and we just got better at what we were doing. The biggest mistake I made was that we worked so much on identifying the attacking possibilities or the opportunities in every situation that we failed to understand how to close out a game, as you saw.
Yeah, gone too far.
But you just couldn't move the girls. I remember when we played Japan just prior to the tournament, Eden Park, there was a big wind coming down the field. And before the toss, I went out, tested the wind, came and saw Ruahei and said, look, big wind coming down the field, just check the app, it's going to stop at about half time. Think we should take it if you win the toss. She looked at me like I was mad. She said, hell no, Smithy, if we win the toss, we want them to kick us a ball, so we're going to attack. So I gave her a big hug and said, that's my girl.
The test.
But that's the attitude that we're creating, because we knew that's the only way we're going to win.
Yeah.
But to play that game, you've got to have an exceptional skill level, be able to pass close to the opposition, no tick in the pass because you haven't got time, pass off either foot. You need the support play to be excellent, and so we had to teach all these skills, and the women would take over. So at the start of training, they'd do their own warm-up for 20 minutes, and a leader would whistle and, right, now we're going to do the box support drill, or now we're going to do the knife through butter drill or whatever, and they took over a lot of the activities so that we could, when we got into training, we could just go hard at the game rather than having to run all the skill drills again.
It's just the most perfect story with the most perfect ending. But how much do you think about those small margins, those like sliding door moments, right? That kick goes over in the semi-final by France, and then we don't have this epic story.
Yeah.
Like that was a makeable kick that she should have made, and then we don't get all of the goodness that's come to New Zealand rugby afterwards. And do you think about that stuff?
Yes, and also the luck of the red card. I mean, that instant it was a red card, but that then creates an opportunity for you against England, and we all know how powerful they were. That gave us an extra opportunity, I think. So there's a bit of luck there. The missed kick was lucky, but we had opportunities in both those games to seal the win. So we had a penalty down in the French half late in that game. We could have kicked for touch. Our line-out drive was going pretty well. We probably even could have scored from that. But instead we tapped and went. My fault, because we we had this call, find it. So every opportunity, if we had a penalty and the other team got slack and started walking back to where they thought the kick was going to go out, then we'd call find it and we'd just attack. But it probably wasn't appropriate with 4 minutes to go in a semi-final, and the same in the final. So Ruahei lined up that, so we had the penalty, our 10-metre line, she probably would have kicked down the 22, our line out throw. England probably not going to score from there. It's certainly not going to, they can drive, but they can't, not even they can drive that far. And so we thought the game was over there as Ruahei lined up, and Kendra Coxedge called find it.
Are you elbowing your assistants at that point in the box?
The magnificent Kendra Coxedge, I must say. She's a fantastic athlete.
She was a great guest on the podcast as well.
She's brilliant. And so what played out.
How's Wayne Smith celebrate that finish was edge of your seat gripping, you get the win? Like, does emotion pour out of you at that point?
Yeah, it was pretty like, I can't say I was that composed in the box because I was screaming at Chrono to get someone up in the line out, get Jonah up, but he didn't have his ear plug in, so he couldn't hear me. Whitney, who was a bit more composed than me, she got hold of Renee Whitcliffe, who was running the water, and said, Pungo, get out there and just make sure Jonah goes up. But Jonah had it sussed. You talked to Jonah, she had it sussed. She's a very smart woman. She knew what the cues were. We knew what the cues were to line out, but we were struggling to pick them, but she picked it. Abby Ward, slight nod. She yelled at Crystal Murray to lift her. I think it was either Alana or Chelsea Bremer as the back lifter. And she was screaming at them to lift her, and the rest's history.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, it's I suppose that one, because when I started it was unexpected. You know, I made brave statements about we're going to win at Eden Park in front of 40,000, but it doesn't mean it's going to happen. You know, and a part of you feels, well, it's a long way to go. It's a long, you know, we've got to make a lot of improvements before we can do that. And then for it to happen, it's sort of become surreal.
At that stage of your career as well, for it to happen, this opportunity which you never could have seen coming, and then to do it on short notice and win. And I mean, I know you're still working now, but it kind of was the sort of the icing on the cake, the cherry on top.
Yeah. Like, I thought I could give the coaches a bit of advice during the year. I never thought I was going to be the head coach and running everything. And we had a very disparate sort of group of people on the staff that had come from all over the place. And initially we weren't a high-performing group at all. But we became that intelligent people in all the roles who grew to understand what we were trying to do and ultimately loved what we were doing. Whereas at the start, they'd been coloured as well by the mental health report. They were pretty shattered, but it was just great to see these people all come together. And a couple of examples. So I've worked with players in a dojo since the Crusaders in '97 because I believe you got a condition for combat. You know, it's a tough sport, and you've got a condition for that with full contact, but you've got to do it in a safe environment. So when I started it with the women, there was very much a shock horror reaction from the staff. Holy hell, we're not going to have anyone left for the tournament. And my argument was always the opposite. No, we're going to have more people available because we're learning safe techniques. Safest techniques are always the most effective as well. People think, if you teach safety, you're not going to be competitive. Teach safety, you're going to be more competitive because like chin up and eyes open allow you to see the opportunity, whereas head down, smashing into contact doesn't. So we were teaching these things, and I think most of us, just about all the staff would say now, if you interviewed them, one of the key things at that World Cup was the dojo because we never got any contact injuries.
Sorry for the ignorance. Is a dojo a metaphor, or are you actually going into...
Actually in dojo.
Wow.
Yeah, get the padded walls.
What metaphor did you think it was?
Well, like coaching deals in metaphor. Like you're going into battle. You're not actually going into battle, but you know what I mean.
There are horrified looks on the faces when we started from the girls, but man, they did it as hard as any men's team I've had. In fact, we got Adrian Choten when we were at a dojo in North Harbour, and I love the way he plays it as a 7, and he's great making decisions over the ball. So I got him in to help the girls with a bit of cue recognition, and I think he was stunned at the intensity of the combat. And we'd do an hour with the backs. Forwards would be doing weights, and then they'd swap around. And of course, one group would try to be better than the other group. And so, whilst it looked violent, it was a really, I think, influential part of us being ready for those big games. So that was important. And as I say, the staff in general bought into everything. We had club nights on a Tuesday night. The girls love a club. They love their club. They love a club night. A few beers and a bit of fun. We didn't have time to do it after games, so we'd have it on Tuesday night. They'd wear the club jerseys. We had a club captain, Aisha Letilinga was the club captain. We got her a pink blazer from an op shop, and we all brought badges along. You know how the club captain has badges on, and then she ran the show on a Tuesday night, and we had through the whole campaign we ran a competition called Power Wars. So we had mini teams, and you got points for winning competitions. So we'd have competitions at club night.
Still going at the Chiefs, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And we'd have competitions on the field. Everything we did was competitive, and so initially too, that was sort of frowned on a wee bit, I think, by the staff, because I'd allow them to have a beer if they wanted a beer, and or a red wine. We had food trucks often, but it was superb at getting laughter, and you've got to enjoy it. We had a lot of laughter, and after a Monday and a Tuesday of hard work, Tuesday night's a great time to relax, and then you've got the next day to ignite yourself for the Thursday, Friday, and then the game. Yeah. So it worked out pretty well, but it wasn't wholly accepted at the start.
I'd say the whole career's worked out pretty well, Wayne.